All right, so working in a hospital is no walk in the park, and though nurses are physically equipped to cater to sites that would make the common man nauseous, have we thought about the psychological toll trauma cases have with nurses? The president of the Nurses Association of Jamaica, Ms. Carmel Johnston, is here to talk more about this issue. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Welcome to Smile Jamaica. It's morning time.
Thank you for having me.
It is our pleasure. What are trauma cases?
Trauma cases are cases where persons come in with any sudden illness or occurrences that is not the normal mode of illness or the normal surgical intervention, but something that has occurred suddenly to stop their life in the middle where they are at the present instance. So you may have motor vehicle accident that creates trauma. You may have gunshot wound. You may have a stab wound, a chop wound, or a fist, or some form of fight that creates some kind of physical injury to the individual that impedes health and wellness.
I said at the top that nurses are physically prepared for this. What about the people who say, well, that's what you were trained to do? How do you respond to people like that?
Yes, we are trained to deal with trauma and to treat patients. But when it becomes overburden is that I may have a one motor vehicle accident that is part of the normal expectation. But when you have a mass case, a bus come in or a car with 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 individuals before you one time and they are bleeding or they are crying or they have broken bones. Or when you have 3, 4, 5, 6 patients come in with gunshot wound or stab wound and they are all bleeding, hemorrhaging, and you know the issue of not having enough blood supply to give to them, you know the issue that the possibility of death may arise and a family come impacted, then that's where it becomes more burdensome to us.
Is it only the cases of trauma that make it burdensome, or is it a situation where there aren't enough nurses to deal with the trauma? It can't be spread wider. Is that part of the problem?
It is both, and also the issue of resources, because you find that you spend more of your resources taking care of traumas that could have been prevented so that you can also intervene better for those who really have a real health issue. And so not having enough nurses to deal with it creates even a greater burden. Because when you normally have 4 persons to treat with maybe 7 patients, now you may have 2 to treat with that same 7 patients. And so it becomes more difficult. How do you share up yourself among these 7 patients to ensure that you preserve life and that you preserve health to the best that you can?
What is causing this mass migration of our nurses?
It is a multiplicity of issues. Amongst them are one, nurses become dissatisfied with their working conditions, meaning the physical conditions are not what they ought to be in many of our institutions. 2, the resources with which to work with, and so it leads to frustration and burnout. 3, the number of patients. Because prior to now, you have persons who have minor ailments who take care of them at home, and so persons are now coming in for any and everything. Also, based on the fact that we have more highways now, you have increase in the number of motor vehicle accidents. You also have it coupled with the issue of not having enough self-love and love for other human beings, and so persons fight and they quarrel and they doesn't treat with it in the normal manner how we used when we were younger, and so that creates the part of the burden. One of the other issues is that nurses are not able to meet their basic needs. And so over the years, not having had the level of remuneration that they need, they're not able to pay their student loan. Unlike when I went to school, the Ministry of Health paid for my education, so I didn't have the burden of a student loan. But these are coming out where under education, and so they go to the universities, they have a 4-year program, and they have had to pay for their education. And so having a student loan to pay, having to come out and pay your rent, pay your utility bills, buy food and travel to work, the remuneration is not what it is. And so many want to be able to take care of themselves and their children and their family, and so they choose to go where it appears to be better.
That's right.
Madam President, you've been a nurse for a little while.
Yes.
Are things a lot worse now in both the question that Sakina asked, really remuneration, and the trauma cases? Are things much worse now?
I'll deal with the trauma cases. Unlike when I was trained in Kingston, where the violence and the volatility was centered in one segment of society, and you're able to treat with it. And at some point, they could always say, oh, we have a shortage here in this parish. Can we get nurses? And you can be transferred to that area. What you find out now, it is across the country. And so in earlier years when I was trained, you have what we call volatile areas, and you have where we say that person, because you work in that area, you're more exposed to trauma, you're more exposed to incidents. Now it is everywhere. And so you have more of it coming in. Another issue too is the lifestyle conditions. And so you find that persons, when you and I used to eat more yam, more dasheen, we didn't drink drinks as often as we used to. We'd have it on a Sunday, maybe on a Wednesday. Persons are consuming more sugar. They're eating more processed food. And so persons get sicker more often. Okay. And so the beds in the facilities are full, and also that creates part of the challenge that we have to cope with.
So it is worse.
It is worse. Again, the salary issue, you used to be able to manage better first time because then the economy was a bit better when I was a younger nurse. Now you find out that because of what the economy is doing at present, you're not able to cope. Again, you used to have more agricultural produce and persons would give you something. Now you don't have many persons farming, and so that's a part of the challenge.
In preparing for this, I read that you lost more than 500 nurses to overseas last year. Do you replace that? How many nurses you need and how many you have and stuff like that? Can you replace them?
We can replace them, yes. One of the challenges that we face over the years, and it's not an issue of not training enough, because the Nursing Council will tell you on an annual basis for each sitting of the regional examination for nurses registration, you have approximately 500 nurses who sits that exam. And so that's more than what we need in the public sector.
That's
the
more
public
than
sector,
what you
yes,
need.
The public sector employs about 3,600 and a little more than that. And so if you are graduating or having persons sitting exam 500 per year, it means you're putting out more than you can.
But nobody's staying.
One of the issues we had is how they were employed. And so persons that have graduated and they sit for a long time based on the fact that we had a period when they were saying we can only employ based on replacement. And they were saying that, oh, you cannot expand your public sector. And so it also impacted healthcare. And so you have persons sitting for years waiting to be employed. I was being employed. And so they choose other option, whether to go private sector or to see how they can get to
Hold on, tell me that again. So you say you graduate 500 nurses, but you're suggesting them don't get a job after them graduate?
Not all of them.
Most of them do? Sorry. Most of them do?
Most, not necessarily most, but maybe about a little more than a third do get employment.
And this is just
and the timeliness of the employment is not always what it ought to be.
What do you mean?
Means that I will graduate, but I may be sitting 2 years, though I have sent out my applications waiting for a job.
Okay.
What is that period of time that you say, that wait period? What is that about? Explain
to be employed?
Sure. Yes.
I applied to one of the regional health authorities to be employed. But it may take me up to 2 years before I get a call for an interview.
So what they do in that 2 years?
Right, that's what I'm asking. What happens in that space?
Sit at home or they do something else or they
no,
look
not
at
for the
job in
nurses.
else.
What's happening on the professional, on the employer side, why it takes 2 years?
What I do know from being in health is that you had a period when you were saying that the public sector need to be restructured and you must make it lean and mean. And so what you had was employment on a replacement basis. So if nobody leaves the institution,
nobody
whether
can
through
get
death
employed.
or whatever means of separation, nobody is employed. And though you know you need the individuals, then there was a restriction on employment.
Yeah, but here why I don't understand
right,
that,
if you're
Madam
understaffed.
President. Because I hear that when you need nurses.
It comes with budgetary allocation.
No, but if you need nurses, maybe I'm not hearing right, but I hear that we need nurses because we're losing nurses. So then if you need nurse and you have 500, why them don't get a job?
Nurse.
We have the same understanding, and sometimes we wonder why. So what we're seeking to do from the Nurse Association end is to do a research on what the real nurse-patient ratio ought to be so that we can inform our employers,
what is it
to inform the
internationally?
Ministry of Health.
What
For
should
some
it be?
areas, like in California, it's 1 to 5,
1 to
normal
5.
medical surgical patients. Some other areas will tell you 1 to 8.
I read
here
that ours is 1 to 18.
And we are?
But in Jamaica, we are up to an average of 1 to 18.
18.
1 to 18.
1 to 18. So you may go to a facility where there's a ward of 30 or there's a ward of 32 or a ward of 45. You may have 2 nurses or you may have 5,
But again, it comes
3
back
nurses.
to the earlier question that we've been asking.
So
we
we are
have people who
hoping-
graduate, so why they're not in that?
We are hoping now with the fact that presents itself and stares us in the face that we lost over 534 nurses last year, that the employers will recognize that we need to move with some alacrity in ensuring that we are able to offer the populace the level of health care that we ought to.
My last question before you go. You keep saying you've lost those nurses. Are those nurses that are employed to the public sector, or were they just nurses that have graduated?
No, they were employed. Those
that
that
is
I'm
why
referring
it's
to
now
were
an issue.
persons who were employed and resigned.
Right, so
and
that
that's why
is
it's an issue. Because now when you'd have had that 500 to
Right.
assist with the patient load, you don't have them.
I've heard for many years, and I think you said it earlier, that you don't get what you should. And it seems like this is my word, but it seems like you and the Minister of Finance or the Ministry of Finance are always in a little bit of a little fight. Where are things with that now?
It's not a fight, it's just getting each other to understand the other person's position.
Right.
And
As I said, that was my
how you
word.
facilitate
As I
us.
said, that was my word.
Right.
Where are you with that
So
now?
we agreed to a 4-year wage negotiation last year based on the explanation from the Ministry of Finance and where they want to go with their macroeconomic plan. And so we agreed to that. So presently we are in our 3rd year now. And so we have 1 more year in the agreement to go, no, 2 more years. So we're in the 2nd year.
Yeah.
And so most of the items, we have a few items that have not been implemented. We have asked the ministry to ensure that same are implemented, that those are implemented by the end of May.
Salary is okay?
It is not okay, but it was implemented.
Okay. So it is better than where it was?
It's maybe about a 8% better than where it was.
Is that it? That's obviously not enough.
So it's
No,
not
it's
where
not
you
enough.
wanted it to be?
No, that wasn't our asking. As we presently, where we sit, our level 1 nurses, those are entry-level nurses, earn more than less than $1,000 per month, you know. They earn $9,900 and something dollars per year. So it tells you we are way less than 100,000 before tax.
Yeah, I don't know if
year.
you can answer this. I get, as a nurse, I get $10 in Jamaica. How much I get, say, in the U.S.?
In the US, you get up to 3,000.
But could
No,
use it.
you mean like 3 times? 3
Could
times
use the
the amount?
$10
You get more
analogy.
than 3 times the amount.
Wow.
So you may get $35.
Right.
I see
so if
why
I get
there's
$10 out here,
I get $35.
Yeah, I see why
Wow.
you would choose that.
Wow.
As an
And
option.
I suspect benefits also would be a little bit different?
Yes, but the benefits are different.
And of course,
And the
you'd
opportunity
be as
that it creates.
understaffed.
Wow.
Right, the patient load is not as high as our
Yeah.
workload.
But the
here.
biggest thing I think I got out of this is that we have nurses, qualified people who are ready to work. And as far as I know, we have a shortage of nurses. Why they're not working? I don't, that part, I still don't get that in me.
That was a part of the challenge that causes nurses to go. So though I may be waiting 2 years and you employ me now, I was already in the system being prepared to go.
Right.
Right.
So my
You have
paper
to go.
come through, I'm gone.
How does this happen, by the way? Does it come through your group?
No,
That-
no, no,
that-
no.
that
You
somebody
have
just calls
recruitment
Sakina and
agencies.
say,
You have
"You're a
recruitment
nurse," and-
agencies, and now it even gets easier, where you can just log onto their site and indicate your willingness to be recruited.
Oh, okay.
And so when the
you go through
availability
the
comes up,
process.
they'll...
And you do the exam, you do your NCLEX.
And they would sort out.
Right, and they pay for everything until you start working, then you refund them.
Wow. Tough. Good to
Yeah.
see you.
It is.
Keep up the fight.
We will not relent.
And we need you. We need you. We need you.
Well,
we need
my
you.
We
purpose is to-
appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for saying that. And I just want to say we appreciate our nurses and the hard work. And for
Yes,
those who
ma'am.
visit the facilities, it becomes even more difficult. You may have to wait a little longer. So just be patient.
Thank you.
All right.
President of the Nurses Association of Jamaica, Carmen L. Johnson.
Still to come, Charlie Black is in the building. He'll take the stage later, but after the break, hush. Find out what that stands for when we return. Tatioso.